So you buy a house in country Australia, you've got some experience owning a house and fixing one up. You work as an interior designer, so you have an eye for design, but you know this project is going to be a lot to take on for you and your husband. I wanted to dedicate a series to the house because I know, having had a house in the past, the amount of time and effort it takes to make that house into a home. And so I wanted to capture that experience for us and share it with you guys, and put it out there so that anybody can kind of be entertained by it, maybe learn from it, hopefully admire it, or at least maybe have a good chuckle at our expense. So for this first episode, I'm going to be giving you an overview of where in the world we are, an overview of the house in its current state, as well as a look at some projects we're going to be taking on. So are you ready? Let's go. So we are in Rushworth, Victoria, which is a dot on the map about 45 minutes southeast of Echuca, which is a larger city that sits basically on the border to New South Wales, which is the state where Sydney is. Melbourne is the big smoke for Victoria, which is a two-hour drive south, and that sits on the water facing the Penguins, as well as Tassie. Rushworth is a town that was founded back in the 1800s. It's an old gold rush town, hence the name. Currently has a population of about 1,500. I think it was 1,300 based on the 2016 census. The main street is all of 500 meters long. It's got basically everything you'd ever need. So an IGA, basically the local supermarket, and which has a liquor store, a servo, a bakery, a pharmacy, an op shop, a hardware store, a couple cool little cafes, and then of course a pub at the top of the main drag and a pub at the bottom of the main drag, the latter of which shuttered, I think, around COVID-19 time, but it's rumored to be reopening pretty soon. This house sits a few blocks away from the top pub, which is pretty convenient. You can even check out the local museum that has some artifacts and a lot of the local history of Rushworth and surrounding areas, and even take a tour or take a hike and check out some of the old gold mines that are, of course, roped on. Also, don't forget the local bowls club and the public swimming pool, which has flexible hours based on how effing hot or effing cold it is. The police station and the courthouse sit at the top of the main drag, across from which is a really cool old church that should absolutely be starred in some movie sometime. This has a really cool old look about it. Driving here from Melbourne, you would think we were in any country with rolling hills and pastures, but then there are hints like the eucalypt trees or the gum trees, which have a really distinct look, as well as, especially in the summertime, an overall kind of sunburnt feel about it, especially in the north. Rushworth is separated by Melbourne from the Great Dividing Range, which is basically a short kind of mountain range or hill range that creates a bit of a different weather between northern Victoria and the city. So it can be hot and sunny here, and it could be cold and miserable in Melbourne, or vice versa. We've got a few wineries about. We are in a bit of a wine region for regional Victoria. So Ngambie is a few clicks, I think, south of us, and that hosts several wineries, which you should absolutely check out. So Tabilk being one of our favorites, and then also Mitchelton, and some others. Romeo was subdivided, or the property was subdivided in 1886, I believe, but no idea when the house was built. The kitchen is part of the main structure of the house. It wasn't kind of out back, so that means that it was after kind of the turn of the century. But it does have many features that are typical of an old Australian country home, specifically the corrugated roof, the weatherboard construction, the stumped foundation, which is everywhere around here. Also a bit of iron fretwork around the front porch, and the kind of unassuming silhouette that is also yet quite distinctive. Looking at the layout of the house, another kind of typical kind of Aussie country house feature is when you go in the front door, there's a long hallway that goes straight through the guts of the house. And this is typical of like a Federation style house, the grander ones having wider hallways and higher ceilings and, you know, pendant lights and stuff to kind of show off the wealth of the owner. Whereas Romeo is a bit more modest, so he has a more narrow hallway, but alas, it still connects to all the bedrooms in the house. So walking down the hall, you have the guest room immediately on your right, or what will become a guest room. On the left-hand side is the master bedroom, which was probably at one time the family room due to its larger size and also having a fireplace. Further down the hall on the left-hand side is probably what used to be the dining area, which also has a fireplace that uses the same chimney as the one in the room in front, which we're going to be turning into a study. And then on the other side of the hallway is another, used to be a bedroom, but they blew out the north side wall into a long addition that goes over the north side of the house. So that addition in the front, which is what you might have guessed is looking like a sunroom, which it is. So that floor kind of drops down to the same level as the front porch. And behind that, we'll be having kind of a dining area, and then a sitting room or a sitting area kind of closer to the French doors that open out onto the backyard. Behind the rooms of the house is the kitchen and the bathroom. Both the kitchen and the bath are in pretty good nick. So the previous owner did a good job, you know, flipping them and making them quite functional and ready to move in and make use of them. So we won't be spending much time and effort in reinventing those. However, I do have some ideas in how to make some tweaks to the design to make them more functional and also a bit more fitting into kind of the scheme that we're going to be going after for the whole look and feel of the house. There are two entrances to the back of the house. The first is the original, which steps out onto a concrete slab, which holds the laundry room on the left, whereas the second is the back of the addition, which a pair of French doors opens up to meet a brick patio that also steps up into a larger brick patio. There's a good sized shed, which will require a bit of work to get up to snuff. So that will be a pretty big project that will require, I don't know, maybe a hazmat suit and a flamethrower. But once it's done, it'll provide an awesome workshop for myself, as well as parsing off a bit of that space for a bit of a garden shed with a separate entry to the back. The yard, as you can tell, needs a bit of a tidy, to say the least. We have about the largest stump known to man that we'll have to do something with, either carve into a six-headed dragon or just remove altogether. Vote below. We're also planning to build a multi-level deck, so one platform being as soon as you walk out onto the back outside the French doors, then an elevated deck a couple steps up for a large living area, and then perhaps another platform to the left of that step down to a dedicated dining space. Because as you know, in Australia, the weather here can be quite amazing, and it's nice to spend a lot of time outside instead of cooped up inside. And that still leaves us with plenty of space in the backyard to throw some ball with our beloved puppy dog Sierra, who will be a star, or maybe play a supporting role in the production of these videos. She does like to help a lot and likes to make her presence known. And another thing we would like to do with the property is to actually move the driveway and what they call the crossover over to the other side of the house. And that's for several reasons. Currently the driveway feels a bit tight on the north side of the house. It's also on the sunny side of the house, and we would like to have a carport, and we don't want the carport to be blocking the light into the house. So there's plenty of space on the south side of the property, which is the shady side of the property, to have a double carport where we wouldn't need to park shotgun style. And then in addition to having the carport on that side, we could also have kind of the hot water service and an air conditioning unit and some other utilities, etc., that we can hide from the more kind of social side of the house. That makes the south side of the house into a bit of a native garden. We'll plant some eucalypts, gum trees, as well as a veggie patch and a herb garden. Carports are pretty standard in Australia. Temperate climate, you don't really need a garage, and carports are much less expensive to build than a garage. The overall look we're going for on the inside of the house, I like to call modern rustic. So finding some really nice modern pieces, so maybe a mid-century piece, perhaps something from the 70s or something, I don't know. A bit of a throwback, but with some nice clean lines, however not too contemporary or futuristic. Also finding some fixtures that are new, but perhaps whose design or shapes and lines speaks to kind of a bygone era, so to speak. But combining that with some clearly antique or older pieces, rustic pieces, but not anything too bombastic in design like Rococo or anything like that, or even Queen Anne, but maybe sticking with more of a shaker style antiques to kind of contrast the more modern furnishings. Thinking about the color palette of the inside, I was really inspired by the eucalypt in the area, so specifically the lovely kind of light green leaves, as well as like the red that you see in the dirt here, as well as the rust of like a Corten steel for a bit of a pop of color. And finally just a nice black, or like a deep charcoal, so to provide some contrast, so not doing a black wall necessarily, but having hardware and fixtures and finishes and some exposed kind of pendant wires in black to provide that point of contrast and also a bit of a rustic vibe. But before we get started, there are several projects we need to look into. First is restumping the addition. So as you can tell, many of these stumps look like they're not holding much weight up at all, and have been pretty well rotted out, so we need to find a restumper to come in and restump this, because you want to make sure your house is all level and plumb before you start doing things like putting in new doors or windows or floors, etc. Next, we would like to paint some of the ceilings. The room that will be the TV lounge is pretty dark, so we'd like to lighten that room up by painting that ceiling white, as well as the dining hall, because that ceiling is a bit low. We will be leaving the ceilings probably in the kitchen, as well as in the study, for a bit of texture, because the study we have kind of that lovely kind of brick chimney feature, which we think a stained ceiling would look really nice with. We'd also like to lay a timber floor that celebrates the region and brings in heaps of warmth and texture to the home. The current floor is in pretty rough shape, including some pretty big holes where you can see the dirt below, but it will make a pretty solid subfloor. Finishing the laundry room, which was left pretty well unfinished, revamping the shed, which you've already seen, building that deck and pergola, blowing up the sunroom, creating a cozy TV lounge. I'd like to do some other kind of built-in touches along the way, and finally reclaiming some furniture. So if you noticed, there is not one closet in this house, so we do need some pretty good solutions for storage, and I'd like to pick up some older kind of antique wardrobes and flip them into a look that kind of suits the house. So yeah, that's all. So if this sounds like something you're keen on following, please smash that subscribe button, ding the notification bell, and give us a like or a comment below, and get started in the conversation. So love to hear from you. Till next time, take care, cheers, see you later, bye.